Don't chase, attract. What belongs to you will simply find you. Hey guys, tonight we explore a truth that might just change everything for you. Imagine this. You're standing on a busy sidewalk, people rushing past you like a river of deadlines and decisions, but you don't move. You're still. And somehow in that stillness, everything you've been running after starts to notice you. It turns. It leans in. It begins to come your way. You probably won't survive this episode with your old mindset intact, because what you'll discover tonight isn't about chasing more. It's about attracting better. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and the local time. I love seeing how far this little bedtime journey reaches across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't need to beg for what's already meant for you. That's the soul of tonight's story. You've probably spent a lot of your life in pursuit mode, hustling for attention, racing toward achievement, grasping at connection. It feels productive, even admirable. But deep inside, it's exhausting. And if you listen closely, there's a voice whispering that maybe, just maybe, the chase isn't actually the way. There's a kind of strength that doesn't chase, it doesn't beg. It doesn't knock endlessly on locked doors hoping someone inside notices. It waits. Not out of laziness, but out of clarity. Because when you finally realize your worth, you stop sprinting toward what doesn't see you. You stop pleading with what isn't meant for you. You stop trying to micromanage the universe like it's an anxious intern who might mess everything up. The Stoics got this in ways that still stun modern thinkers. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us and some things are not." That's more than philosophy. It's survival. Because chasing what isn't yours to command burns your energy in all the wrong places. And then you wonder why you're tired all the time, why you can't sleep, why you're anxious even when everything looks okay on paper. You've tried to rush clarity. You've begged love to stay. You've gripped control like it was oxygen. But life doesn't work that way. The more you force it, the more it slips. Like trying to hold water with clenched fists, it just escapes faster. Historians still argue whether Marcus Aurelius's meditations were ever meant for publication. But what's clear is that his words weren't meant to impress. They were meant to survive by guiding the self. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote. Realize this and you will find strength. That's not just a quote, it's a permission slip, a release, a way out of the chase. Letting go isn't giving up, it's giving space. Imagine a river. You could thrash and kick upstream, exhausting yourself, or you could float. Not passively, but with awareness. You still navigate, still make choices, but you stop fighting the current. Suddenly, the journey isn't against you anymore. It never was. You just weren't listening. And that's the thing. You've been taught to shout over life, to overpower it. But tonight, you're learning to listen again. Let's say you're working toward a goal, career, relationship, healing. You plan, you push, you strive, and nothing happens. So you push harder. Your grip tightens. You obsess. But instead of moving forward, things stall. Why? Because force is rooted in fear. And fear repels, it clouds your vision. It makes you reactive instead of reflective. It's like putting all your hope into a locked door, not noticing the open one just around the corner because you're too busy pounding and pleading. What if, just what if, what you want isn't behind that door at all? What if it's walking toward you from a completely different street, hoping you'll stop screaming long enough to notice? The Stoics believed peace begins where control ends, not apathy, alignment. That's different. It's when your actions come from inner calm, not external panic. It's when you choose based on what's true for you, not what you fear losing. You've probably tried to control life into cooperating. You've told it how fast to go, who to send, what to remove. And when it doesn't listen, you feel betrayed. But maybe life wasn't betraying you. It was protecting you from what wasn't ready, or from what you weren't ready for. That's hard to hear, but also freeing. In ancient Rome, the Stoics weren't just armchair philosophers. Their ideas were born in courtrooms, battlefields, and exile. They were tested in pain, not in theory. When Epictetus was a slave, he learned that inner freedom mattered more than outer circumstances. When Marcus ruled an empire in chaos, he journaled about how peace could only start from within. And here you are, maybe not in chains or on a throne, but still in your own kind of chaos. Still trying to chase peace, chase worth, chase love. But peace doesn't come from chasing, it comes from ceasing the chase. So here's the invitation. Let go. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough not to beg anymore. Strong enough to trust that what's yours will recognize you, not when you're performing, but when you're finally home in yourself. Ask yourself tonight, what am I gripping so tightly that it's cutting off my circulation? What would happen if I let go just a little? What might float to me if I stopped trying to force it into my hands? And maybe most importantly, can I begin to believe, not just say, but believe, that what is meant for me doesn't need to be chased? That's where we begin. Stillness. It sounds like a whisper, like something you do when there's nothing left to do. But tonight you learn that stillness is not the absence of motion, it's the mastery of it. You start to see how ancient philosophers and the wisest people you know didn't get ahead by doing more. They got ahead by seeing more, hearing more, by becoming a space, not just a spark. You've been taught that clarity comes from movement. Plan more, do more, say more. But what if clarity doesn't come when you act harder, but when you finally sit still long enough to hear the answers that were always trying to reach you? You wake up, roll over, and already your mind's moving. Emails, bills, goals, regrets. You take a breath and jump into the noise. And yet, some of your most powerful moments, they've come when you weren't doing anything at all. That walk where an idea finally hit you. That quiet moment in the shower when the decision became obvious. That pause, just before you said something you'd regret. And in that stillness, your better self stepped in. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul." He wasn't being poetic. He was telling you a secret. You've been looking for answers outside, and all this time, they've been sitting quietly within. Stillness is the secret doorway into attraction. It's the magnet in you. When you're still, when your breath slows, your vision sharpens. Suddenly you can feel the difference between what drains you and what fills you. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What feels aligned?" That shift? It's magnetic. People feel it. The room feels it. You feel it. In modern psychology, they call it coherence, when your heart, your breath, and your thoughts fall into rhythm. That's stillness. It's not zoning out. It's tuning in. Historians and Stoic scholars still debate whether this idea of inner congruence came directly from the early Stoics or emerged later through interpretations of Eastern philosophy. But no matter its origin, the result is the same. Peace that doesn't depend on outer control. Picture your mind like a lake. Most of the time it's stormy. You can't see the bottom. But in stillness, the waves settle. The water clears. You start to see through your own mind, to your own truth. This is when the real attraction begins. You've heard it before. Your vibe attracts your tribe. But tonight it's deeper than Instagram quotes. It's the actual energy you bring into rooms, into conversations, into your work. When you're still, people trust you. They're drawn to you not because you're loud, but because you're grounded. You become the calm in the storm, and calm is irresistible in a world addicted to chaos. Think of someone who has that energy, that presence. They don't rush. They don't force. They just are. That stillness. It's subtle, but it shifts everything. Now remember the Stoic distinction. Some things are in your control, and some things are not. Stillness sharpens that boundary. It helps you act only where action is needed. You stop wasting energy fixing what doesn't need fixing, chasing what doesn't need chasing. And suddenly, you have space. Space for ideas, for joy, for better things to arrive. The historian Plutarch once described how the Stoics differed from the Epicureans in their approach to peace, not through avoidance of pain, but through inner mastery. This idea that peace is earned, not by withdrawing, but by engaging with presence, is the foundation of what we're doing here tonight. So how do you practice stillness in a noisy world? You begin by breathing. That's it. Not the kind of breath you take when you're bracing for bad news, but the kind you take when you remember, oh yeah, I'm alive. You close your eyes for 2 minutes before a meeting. You put your phone away for 5 minutes before bed. You take a walk without needing a podcast or a playlist to distract you from your own thoughts. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But in a world where everyone is drowning in noise, silence is rebellion. Stillness is power. Because here's what happens when you stop moving. What's meant for you can finally catch up. It's like you've been sprinting ahead thinking you're behind, when the truth is your next opportunity was trying to find you the whole time. But you were too fast, too loud, too distracted to notice. You don't have to force every outcome. You don't have to have the next 10 steps mapped out. When you get still, you start to sense what step to take next, not from panic, but from presence. That's the new way. Not ambition driven by anxiety, but aligned, deliberate motion from stillness. And in this stillness, you hear something else. The quiet voice of you. Not the version of you that performs, the version of you that knows. The one that remembers what really matters. The one that's not afraid to be seen clearly, because finally, you're aligned with your own truth. What would shift in your life if you stopped rushing clarity and started trusting that it already lives within you? What answers are already rising, just waiting for you to get quiet enough to hear? That's what you attract when you become still. You've been told that surrender is weakness, that letting go means you've lost, that if you aren't in control, you must be behind. But tonight you discover something ancient and quietly revolutionary. Surrender isn't failure, it's freedom. And it's the doorway to everything you've been chasing. You probably know the feeling. That tightness in your chest when something isn't working, but you keep pushing anyway. That stubborn hope that if you try harder, love harder, plan better, it'll finally turn in your favor. But deep down your soul is whispering, this isn't it. It's begging for relief. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise enough to know when to stop gripping. The Stoics didn't use the word surrender, but they lived by its essence. Epictetus taught, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle: some things are within our control and some are not. That's the framework. That's the soft landing. Surrender isn't about giving up. It's about knowing where your power ends and where trust begins. Imagine you're holding a kite. You run, you let the wind catch it, and then you try to control every gust. You pull too hard. You panic in every dip. And in trying to dominate the wind, you snap the string. But if you just let it move, guide it, not grip it, it flies higher than you imagined. Life is like that. And so is love. And healing. And purpose. When you stop forcing, you start flowing. Historians still debate how much Stoic practice was influenced by the earlier teachings of Socrates, especially regarding acceptance and resilience. What's agreed upon is this. The Stoics elevated surrender into an art form, not passive but intentional, not helplessness but harmony with what already is, and that's what you're invited into now. You've done your part, you've tried, cried, hoped, and fought, but now is the moment to exhale, to say, I've done what I can. I trust the rest to unfold. This isn't spiritual bypassing. It's spiritual bravery. You stop trying to bend reality to your will. You stop resisting what is. And that resistance, that's where the suffering hides. The story that says, if you aren't controlling it, you're failing. That story is a lie, and surrender is the truth that sets you free. Think of someone who tried to force life. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's a friend, the overthinker, the fixer, the one who sends texts just to get a reply, who refreshes emails hoping for validation, who replays conversations trying to decode what went wrong. That person isn't flawed, they're afraid, and surrender is the antidote to fear. Because here's the truth no one tells you. You can't lose what's truly meant for you. What's meant for you doesn't need to be convinced. It doesn't need you to sacrifice your peace or twist yourself out of shape. It sees you. It resonates with your essence. But it can't find you when you're hiding behind force. So tonight, let's practice this. Close your eyes, unless you're already there. Breathe in. And as you exhale, ask yourself, where am I holding too tightly? What am I afraid will fall apart if I stop trying to control it? Now imagine letting it go, not dropping it, not throwing it away, just loosening your grip. Like unclenching a fist that's been tense for years, feel that space, that ease, that soft opening. This is where life enters. When you surrender, you don't disappear, you become more visible. Because the version of you that's desperate, that's begging, that's trying to force life into submission, that's not your truest self. Your truest self is already whole, already worthy, already enough. You don't surrender because you're tired. You surrender because you're finally wise enough to know the difference between effort and agony. That's why the Stoics called it virtue. Right action, right energy, right alignment. Not endless striving, but deliberate, clear, and peaceful being. Still, surrender doesn't mean you stop showing up. You still send the message. You still go to the audition. You still write the book. Apply for the role, open your heart. But after that, you let go. You release the emotional ransom you've tied to the outcome. You trust that the universe or God or life itself is now holding the thread. And that trust, that's the most magnetic thing in the world. It says, I know who I am, whether this works out or not. It whispers, I'm aligned with peace, not because I've won, but because I've stopped waging war on what is. It glows. It calms. It draws the right people, the right chances, the right love, not by demanding them, but by being ready to receive them. So ask yourself tonight, What if surrender isn't where the story ends, but where the real story finally begins? What if, instead of bracing against life, you open to it? What if letting go is the exact moment your next chapter starts writing itself? What if peace isn't what you find when you finally win the chase, but what you find when you finally leave the chase? Tonight, let that truth settle in your chest. Let it move through your breath. Let it root in your spine, because when you stop running, you start arriving, and what's yours finally starts finding its way home. You've been told to give your all, to grind, to never stop until the job is done, the dream is real, the love is won. But what if giving your all didn't mean attaching your peace to the outcome? What if your real power came from being able to give fully and still be at peace no matter what happened next? Tonight, you'll step into that space where effort becomes freedom, not a trap. Where doing your best no longer costs you your self-worth. You start to notice it in the small things. The way you brace before opening an email, afraid of rejection. The way your stomach knots after a tough conversation, afraid it didn't go well. You've been trained to believe that outcomes validate effort, that success proves your value, that if something fails, it means you weren't enough. But what if that's all backwards? The Stoics didn't define excellence by applause. They defined it by integrity. Epictetus taught, do your best then detach, meaning give your energy, your intention, your presence, but do not tie your soul to how things unfold, because the outcome, that was never in your control. And isn't that what eats you alive? Not the work itself, but the waiting, the clenching, the hoping it all turns out just right. That exhausting in between, where your identity gets caught, in limbo, hanging on the result like your whole life depends on it. But it doesn't. Not really. Let's rewind a bit, back to ancient Rome. Stoicism wasn't a philosophy of the elite. It was forged in hardship. One of the most powerful Stoic figures, Marcus Aurelius, ruled during plagues, wars, betrayals. And even then he reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. That wasn't a pretty sentiment. It was armor. He couldn't control the collapsing empire, but he could control his response, his presence, his effort. That's where you come in. You've given your best. You've shown up. You've stayed longer, worked harder, hoped deeper. But here's the question. Can you now release the grip? Can you say, I've done enough, and mean it, not as resignation, but as respect for your own limits? Because when you don't detach, you don't rest. And when you don't rest, you stop enjoying the very life you're building. You turn into a performance machine, always producing, always striving, never arriving. But what if your worth was never in the win? What if the reward was already in the way you showed up? Historians still analyze Stoicism's evolution from a theory of virtue to a lifestyle of inner mastery. But what never changed was the practice. Act from intention, not attachment. Think of the seed. You plant it, water it, nurture it, but you don't scream at it to grow faster. You trust the process. You give it space. And in that space, transformation happens. It's the same with you. When you're obsessed with outcomes, you narrow your vision. You miss the signs. You miss the beauty. You miss you. But when you focus on the process, you expand. You awaken. You give your best, not because you're promised the prize, but because it's who you are. And here's something wild to consider. Maybe the outcome not happening is your protection. Maybe what didn't work out saved you from becoming someone you were never meant to be. You can't see it now, but one day you'll look back and say thank you for the no, for the delay, for the door that stayed shut. Because you weren't being rejected. You were being redirected. So how do you detach without going numb? You start by asking, Have I done my part? Not perfectly, but honestly. If yes, then breathe, then release. Let the current take it from here. Next, remind yourself, outcomes don't define identity. They reflect timing, readiness, alignment, but they don't determine your value. And most importantly, stay engaged. Don't disappear into apathy. This isn't about not caring, it's about not clutching. It's about showing up with fire and letting go with grace. Imagine if you could pour your heart into something and walk away smiling no matter what. That's not indifference. That's emotional freedom. It's what lets you try again without bitterness. Love again without fear. Create again without needing applause. This is detachment in its purest form. Showing up fully because it's who you are, not because you're promised anything in return. It's the quiet moment after the audition, where you don't spiral, you smile. It's the calm after the job interview where you don't obsess, you move on. It's the softness in your chest after saying, "I love you," without needing it echoed back. It's walking away with your peace intact. So tonight, ask yourself, where have I been gripping for a result instead of honoring my effort? What would shift if I gave my all and let that be enough? Because when you stop demanding that life reward every drop of energy, something shifts. You start creating from joy, not fear. You start acting from clarity, not desperation. And slowly you become the kind of person who doesn't just attract success, but attracts peace and keeps it. There's a difference between wanting and needing, and you felt it. Wanting is a quiet fire. It warms, it inspires, it guides. But needing is a storm. It churns in your chest, keeps you up at night, makes your stomach ache when they don't text back, when the project doesn't land, when the mirror reflects more questions than answers. Tonight you learn that desire, pure, clean, grounded desire, is a beautiful thing. But when it turns to desperation, it loses its power and takes yours with it. Have you ever wanted something so badly that it started to hurt? The relationship, the recognition, the chance to prove you're worthy. You wake up thinking about it. You scroll for signs. You replay what you said, how you said it. You tell yourself, if I can just get this one thing, I'll be okay. That's not desire anymore, that's fear, pretending to be purpose. The Stoics warned against this. They didn't tell you not to want, they told you not to cling. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." What happens when you let desire mutate into desperation is simple. You surrender that freedom. You become enslaved to outcomes, and suddenly, your peace becomes a hostage. Let's pause here. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what do I think this thing will give me? Validation? Belonging? Proof that I'm finally enough? Historians still discuss whether Stoicism discouraged ambition, but most agree it didn't. What it discouraged was attachment to results. You're allowed to want deeply. The problem isn't in the fire, it's in the fear that if you don't have it, you'll crumble. But you won't. And here's why. When you desire something from your wholeness, not from your wounds, you attract it differently. You say, I'd love to have this, but I'm already complete without it. And that kind of energy, it draws the right things in like gravity. Not out of force, but out of resonance. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who needed you to like them? Someone who came on too strong, overshared, overpromised, overpleased? You felt it, didn't you? That pulled a step away. Not because they were bad, but because their energy was frantic, desperate. Now contrast that with someone who was calm in their desire. They liked you, but they didn't need you to complete them. They weren't trying to convince you of anything, they just were. Present, grounded, and that's attractive. You can be that person too. Desire is clean when it comes from choice, not compulsion. It says, I choose this path, I choose this love, I choose this dream. But it doesn't demand, it doesn't bargain, it doesn't chase. The modern world often confuses hunger with worthiness. We think the more we want something, the more deserving we are of it. But Stoicism flips that on its head. You're not more worthy because you suffer for it. You're worthy simply because you exist, because you breathe, because you dare to show up again and again. So how do you return to clean desire? First, pause. Trace your craving back to its root. Ask, what need am I hoping this will fulfill? Then, this is key. Ask, can I begin meeting that need within myself right now? You want love? Start by offering yourself tenderness, honesty, safety. You want recognition? Acknowledge your efforts privately. Be proud in the quiet. You want success? Show up for your work, not for the applause, but for the love of the process. When you feed your own soul, you stop starving for scraps. And the universe? It feels that shift. Suddenly you're no longer begging. You're building. You're creating. You're becoming. Epictetus didn't say, don't care. He said, care wisely, care from presence, not panic, care with passion, not possession. And when those waves of longing rise again, and they will, don't suppress them. Let them rise. Feel them fully, but don't drown in them. Instead, let them point you inward. Ask yourself, what if the thing I want is also looking for me, but I've been too loud, too frantic, too impatient for it to find me clearly? Imagine this. You're on a train platform, you're early, you're calm, you've got your ticket, your bag, your breath. The train you want, the one that's meant for you, it's on its way. But if you start panicking, pacing, asking strangers, if you're even in the right place, you miss the moment it arrives. It was looking for you to be still. That's how aligned desire works. It comes to the version of you that's ready to hold it. Not the version that's begging, the version that's being. So tonight, here's your invitation. Reclaim your desire, clean it up, purify it from fear. Let it inspire you, not enslave you. Ask yourself, what do I truly want and why? Where have I mistaken urgency for purpose? What might I attract if I stopped pleading and started preparing? Because the most magnetic thing in the world isn't a scream. It's a whisper, a grounded, I'm already whole kind of energy. That's what calls things in, so let go of desperation and let your desire become a quiet declaration. I want this, but I'm already enough, with or without it. You've probably pushed through something lately, pushed through fatigue, through doubt, through silence that felt like rejection. You told yourself that if you just kept going, kept giving, kept pressing forward, things would finally shift. But instead, you felt resistance, not outside but inside, and that's where tonight begins, not in the pushing, but in the pause. Because there's a difference between persistence and force. Persistence comes from alignment. Force comes from fear. One flows with life. The other tries to overpower it. You already know the feeling of force. That moment when everything inside you tightens but you ignore it. That relationship where you stayed too long, always convincing, always chasing. That project you kept trying to make work, even when it drained you. That dream that felt more like pressure than possibility. And still, you pushed. You told yourself, Just a little more. Just one more try. But what if the exhaustion wasn't a sign to keep going? What if it was the whisper of misalignment? The Stoics didn't worship effort for its own sake, they honored right effort. Effort that aligns with nature, your nature. Epictetus wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be and then do what you have to do." In other words, know who you are before deciding what you chase. Otherwise, you'll spend your life climbing ladders propped against the wrong walls. Historians still debate whether Stoic teachings encourage quietism, non-intervention in life, or whether they actually promote engaged, thoughtful living. But most agree. The Stoic path is one of conscious action, not avoidance. And tonight that action means looking inward before you charge forward. Ask yourself, where am I pushing so hard that I've forgotten how to feel? Where am I chasing something that doesn't even feel right anymore? Here's what no one tells you. Force is expensive. It costs your joy. It costs your clarity. It keeps you locked in performance mode, always doing, never receiving. And the irony, the more you force something, the more it resists. Think about a river. When you flow with it, you move with speed and grace. But try swimming upstream. Try forcing it and you'll exhaust yourself in minutes. Life works the same way. There's a way to tell when something is aligned. Your energy doesn't lie. You feel grounded, not frantic. Stretched, but not shattered. Tired, maybe, but fulfilled. Your breath is easier. Your mind clearer. There's less second guessing. More peace even in challenge. And when you feel the opposite, doubt, overthinking, anxiety that sticks like fog, that's resistance. Not the kind you push through, but the kind you listen to. Imagine being in a room with two doors. One door is locked. You push and pull, throw your weight against it, determined to break it open. But the other door, quiet, waiting, opens with a whisper of a touch. That's alignment. But you never see it if you're too busy trying to batter your way forward. Alignment asks something simple of you. Honesty. Radical, inner honesty. Ask yourself, is this path draining me or feeding me? Am I doing this out of fear of missing out or out of true desire? What would I choose if I didn't feel pressure to prove anything? Sometimes the hardest thing isn't pushing through. It's stopping, pausing, admitting that just because you've invested time or energy doesn't mean you're obligated to continue. That's not failure. That's recalibration. The world praises hustle. It hands out awards for perseverance, not for intuition. But what if success isn't always about pushing harder? What if it's about adjusting sooner? This doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop trying to force. You keep showing up, but from a place of inner clarity. You keep acting, but with aligned intention. So what does alignment look like? It looks like waking up excited. Not every day, but often. It feels like breathing into a choice, not suffocating beneath it. It sounds like ease. Not laziness, but the kind of motion that doesn't require you to betray yourself to keep going. You don't have to sacrifice your soul to make something happen. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Let's add, if it does not feel aligned, stop forcing it. You'll be amazed what happens when you stop pushing what's not meant for you. Space opens, energy returns, creativity floods back in, people appear, ideas click. Because finally, you're moving with life, not against it. And maybe that's what attraction really is. Not magic, not mystery, just movement from a place of truth. So tonight, take a breath and ask, where am I pushing too hard? What have I outgrown? but been too afraid to release? What might happen if I stopped forcing and started trusting again? Because the life that's meant for you doesn't need to be forced. It will meet you, not when you're performing, but when you're present. When you align, you don't have to chase. You simply become, and what's meant for you begins to recognize you. You walk into a room and without saying a word, people feel something. They may not be able to explain it, but something shifts. Some lean in, others step back. It's not your clothes, your resume, or your cleverness. It's your presence. It's your vibration. And tonight, you come face to face with this quiet truth. Your energy speaks before you do. And what it says about who you are, what you believe, what you're ready to receive, shapes everything you attract. It's not mysticism. It's resonance. It's the emotional tone you carry into the world. And like a tuning fork, you draw toward you what matches your frequency. Ever wonder why some people seem to attract ease, opportunity, love, without chasing? It's not luck. It's alignment. They're not performing. They're radiating. Not perfection, but congruence between who they are and how they move through life. You felt it before. When someone walks in and you feel calm just because they're near. Or when someone's energy feels frantic, even if they're smiling. Their vibration tells the truth their words can't hide. And now you ask yourself, what is my energy saying when I'm silent? The Stoics had no word for vibration, but they understood this completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Your inner world colors everything. The choices you make, the people you attract, the moments you notice or miss, and your energy. It doesn't lie. You can post positive affirmations all day, but if you're full of fear, people feel that. If you say, "I'm fine," but your spirit is shaking, people know, even if they don't know how. Historians still debate whether Stoicism was primarily a cognitive discipline or a spiritual practice. But what remains constant is this: the inner life is not separate from the outer. Who you are inside becomes the blueprint for what you build outside. You've spent enough time polishing the outside, perfecting your voice, your look, your feed. But energy can't be edited. It's lived. So what shapes it? Thoughts, beliefs, the stories you repeat, the emotions you nurture when no one's watching. If you live in scarcity, you vibrate scarcity. If you live in self-trust, you radiate calm certainty. Imagine two people walk into the same opportunity. One believes deeply in their worth, not from arrogance, but from quiet knowing. The other believes they must earn worthiness through proving, performing, pleasing. Same chance, different results. Because life isn't just responding to effort, it's responding to energy. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. So let's get honest tonight. What energy have you been living in? Anxious? Apologetic? Desperate to be seen? Or are you grounded even when unseen? Trusting even when waiting? You can't fake vibration. You can fake confidence, you can fake smiles. But vibration comes from the real you, the one beneath the armor. And that's good news. Because it means you don't have to perform anymore. You don't have to chase impressions. You only need to become the energy of what you desire. Want love? Be love. Gentle, open, forgiving. With yourself first. Want peace? Live peace. Not perfection, but honesty. Stillness. Quiet, inner alignment. Want opportunity? Be opportunity. Show up with presence. Offer your gifts without fear. It's not about manipulating energy to get what you want. It's about refining your inner life so that what's meant for you feels welcome when it arrives. Think of your energy as a room. Is it clean or cluttered? Warm or cold? Is there space for what you're calling in? Or is it crowded with doubt, bitterness, noise? And here's the key. Your vibration doesn't just affect others. It shapes how you see yourself. When you're vibrating low, you settle. You chase. You betray your own peace for scraps of approval. But when you're in alignment, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying, but because your truth is louder than your fear. So how do you shift your vibration? Start small. Speak kindly to yourself. Breathe with intention. Release stories that no longer reflect who you're becoming. Surround yourself with spaces and souls that remind you of your worth. You don't have to be positive all the time. You just have to be honest, feel what you feel, but choose not to live there forever. Keep climbing back to center, and in time, you'll start noticing the shift. You'll stop trying to prove yourself. You'll stop reacting to what isn't meant for you. You'll stop shrinking just to be accepted, because the energy of someone who's done the inner work is unmistakable. It moves through a room like a breeze, quiet, steady, certain. It doesn't demand, it doesn't chase. It just is, and that is enough. So ask yourself tonight, what energy am I carrying into this moment? What frequency have I been tuning my life to? What might change if I stopped fixing the outside and started aligning the inside? Your vibration speaks before you do. And when it's in harmony with your truth, you won't have to chase a thing. You'll draw it in, effortlessly, because you won't just be wanting it. You'll already be living it. There's a ticking sound you've learned to live with, even when you can't quite place it. A pressure that hums beneath your everyday moments. When you scroll through someone else's milestones, when another birthday passes, when you hear the whisper, "You should be further along by now." Tonight we're going to silence that ticking, because the clock you're chasing, it isn't real. You've been sold a timeline. Graduate by this age, succeed by that one. Find love, build wealth, evolve, achieve, all before some invisible expiration date. And when your life doesn't follow that schedule, you feel behind, like you've missed your chance, like time forgot you. But here's the truth no one tells you: there is no universal timeline. The only thing you're late for is someone else's expectation. The Stoics knew this. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Not waste in the way you think, binge watching or daydreaming, but waste through comparison, through trying to live on someone else's clock. Historians still debate whether Stoicism encouraged passivity about time or simply reverence for the present. But one thing is agreed upon: it taught presence over panic. And that's your lesson tonight. Your life is not behind, it's becoming. There are seasons where nothing blooms on the surface, but underground, everything is shifting. Roots are growing deeper, the soil is rearranging. And if you judge the plant by the winter, you'd think it was dead, but it's not. It's preparing. You are that plant. And winter doesn't mean failure. So let's challenge the lie that if you haven't found your person, your purpose, your big break, that you're somehow late. Who decided when it should happen? Who gave fear the clock and told you to obey? Take a deep breath. Imagine your life as a mosaic. Every tile a moment. Some shine early, some arrive late. But all are essential, and none are wasted. You may not know it, but something powerful happens when you stop rushing. You begin to live in rhythm with your life, not in resistance to it. That rhythm isn't constant. It speeds up, slows down, but it's intelligent. It knows when to stretch you, when to protect you, when to delay what you think you're ready for, because you're not yet. Imagine getting everything you wanted exactly when you wanted it. That love, that role, that dream. Now imagine it arriving before you had the wisdom to hold it. Would you have recognized it, protected it, grown with it? Or would you have lost it before it even settled? Sometimes the delay is the blessing, and no one tells you this, but you can grow slow and still bloom beautifully. There is no rule that says your best chapter can't start in your 30s, 40s, 60s. No commandment that says healing must happen fast, or love must arrive by 28, or success must scream by 35. The universe doesn't rush, neither does nature. Why should you? When you let go of the timeline, you reclaim your power. You stop measuring yourself against people who are living a completely different story. You stop assigning shame to your pace. You stop defining delay as defeat. You start living. You begin to notice the moments in between, the depth of the silence, the gold in the waiting. You find breath, space, grace. You find yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculation." In other words, stop measuring life by what hasn't happened yet. Live the moment that's here. So how do you let go of the clock? You catch the thoughts that say, "I should be further." You ask, according to who? You shift from deadlines to alignment, from pressure to presence. Start asking, am I growing? Am I aligned? Am I becoming more myself? Because those are the real milestones. Not the car, not the ring, not the followers, or paychecks. But how you breathe through uncertainty, how you return to self-trust, how you soften your grip on the illusion that life must move faster. You might not be where you thought you'd be, but what if you're exactly where you're meant to be? In the middle of becoming, in the middle of preparation. The Stoics believed that right action leads to right timing, not the other way around. So act, grow, heal, love. But stop watching the clock like your worth is ticking, because time isn't a trap. It's a teacher, and it will deliver what's meant for you, not when you're panicked, but when you're ready. So ask yourself tonight, what timeline have I been obeying that isn't even mine? What fear is telling me I'm behind? And what truth is trying to remind me I'm becoming? What would shift if I trusted the timing of my life instead of trying to race it? Let go of the clock. Hold on to the moment, because this, right now, is the only time your life has ever truly asked for. You've been taught to value the finish line, to live for the moment you finally make it, the promotion, the relationship, the number on the scale, the book on the shelf. But tonight you're going to remember something far more powerful. The prize is not the destination. The prize is who you become along the way. What if the journey itself was the point? You've rushed before. You've burned yourself out chasing results. You told yourself, I'll rest when it's done, I'll breathe when I get there. But then you got there and found yourself already thinking about the next thing. It's a loop, a trap. And the Stoics saw it centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not waste the rest of your life in imagining how you would do things if you had lived centuries ago. Instead, live now." That wasn't just philosophical poetry, it was survival, a reminder that your life is happening here, not in the dream that hasn't arrived. Historians and philosophers still argue whether Marcus wrote his meditations for others or simply for himself. But one thing is clear. The wisdom he wrote down was a guide back to presence, back to process. Because the path is where everything that matters happens. The discipline, the resilience, the self-trust, the tiny wins that no one applauds but that shape your character in silence. The late nights you show up anyway. The mornings you try again even when no one's watching. You want to be proud of the outcome? Be proud of how you move toward it. Let's say you're writing a book, launching a business, healing a wound, rebuilding a life. The moments when it's messy, unclear, slow, those are not in the way. They are the way. This is where your values are tested. This is where your grit is built. This is where you learn to stay steady in the storm. We've been conditioned to fixate on the results, but obsession with outcomes steals the soul of the process. You stop creating from love and start creating from lack. You forget the joy in the small. You forget you. When you return to process, something powerful happens. Your energy steadies. You stop hustling for worth. You start working from worth. You may be asking, but what if I never get the reward? And here's the Stoic answer. You already have. The process has already changed you. That's not nothing. That's everything. Seneca wrote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." But what's often misunderstood is that preparation isn't just strategy, it's soul. It's who you become in the waiting, in the not knowing, in the 1,000 quiet decisions you make every day. So what does it mean to focus on the process? It means you fall in love with the small. If you're building something, love the foundation, the late night ideas, the first awkward drafts, the conversations that don't go viral but change a single heart. If you're healing, love the silent victories, the days you don't spiral, the hour you feel okay, the meal you eat with mindfulness, the boundary you keep. If you're growing, love the slow, the unseen, the parts of you maturing beneath the surface. Because even when there's no proof, it's still progress. This mindset doesn't make you soft. It makes you strong. Because when you're grounded in process, you're unshakable. You don't fall apart when outcomes shift. You don't break when timing lags. Because your joy, your peace, your power, it's not hanging on the finish line. It's anchored in the present, and when you live like that, the results come. Not because you force them, but because they're drawn to the version of you who isn't desperate, who is already fulfilled. So, how do you do this practically? You shift your questions. Instead of, "Am I there yet?" ask, "Am I aligned today?" Instead of, "Will this work?" ask, "Did I show up with intention?" Instead of, "How long will this take?" ask, "How fully did I live this moment?" Then you keep moving, not with panic but with peace. And yes, some days you'll forget. You'll stare at the metrics. You'll crave the recognition. You'll want to sprint to the ending. But come back, again and again, to the step, to the breath, to the now. Because this moment, this effort, this quiet act of showing up, it matters more than you know. So ask yourself tonight, where have I been sacrificing joy for a prize I might not even want anymore? What part of the journey have I ignored because I thought it didn't count? How might I treat this step as sacred even if no one sees it but me? Because the reward isn't just what you get at the end. It's who you are when you get there. And if you honor the process, truly honor it, you won't just attract the right outcome. You'll become the person who can hold it. There's a quiet difference between wanting and needing, between intention and obsession, between a heart that longs and a mind that clings. And tonight, you learn how to love, strive, and hope without losing yourself in the process. Desire, when pure, is beautiful. It drives growth, fuels action, inspires creativity. It's the spark in your chest that says, "I want more." But desire warped by desperation? That's different. That's not a spark. It's a wildfire. It consumes rather than creates. You've been there. That feeling of waiting on the message, the opportunity, the yes. The way your stomach twists when they don't respond. The way you scan the sky for signs that your dream is still on the way. The way your joy hinges on whether or not something outside you happens soon and happens your way. That's not just desire. That's dependence. And the Stoics warned us about this too. Epictetus, ever the pragmatist, said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Not to shame your desire, but to anchor you, to remind you, you can want and still be whole without it. Historians have long discussed the Stoic aversion to external attachments, not because desire itself is wrong, but because too many of us give our power away when we need the thing to feel okay. The shift begins when you pause and ask, what am I making this desire mean? Do you believe that landing that job proves your worth? That finding that love fixes your loneliness? That hitting that goal validates your existence? Desire becomes dangerous when it becomes conditional to your peace, because then you're no longer chasing a dream. You're running from emptiness, and that's when you begin to act from fear. You people please. You overperform. You try to prove you're good enough to receive what you want. But that energy, it pushes things away. It creates friction. It makes your energy heavy because it's full of stories about lack. But what if you could want something without being ruled by it? Imagine this, you say, yes, I want this. But you say it from your center, not from a wound, not from scarcity. You say it because it aligns with your truth, because it excites your soul, because it reflects what's already blooming within you, not what you hope will fix you. That's clean desire. And clean desire is magnetic. It doesn't plead. It doesn't grasp. It doesn't whisper, please choose me. It declares, I choose this, and I choose myself, regardless of the outcome. You can feel the difference, can't you? Think of someone who embodies this. Maybe you've met them. Someone who wants big things but carries peace, not panic. They're intentional, but unattached. Clear, but calm. They aren't waiting to live until the dream arrives. They're already alive. That's the goal, not to kill desire, but to clean it. And how do you do that? You start with awareness. When a desire grips you, ask, what do I think this will solve? Can I meet that need in part, right now, within myself? Who would I become if I no longer believed I needed this to be whole? You shift from waiting to preparing, from grasping to aligning. You stop saying, when it comes, I'll be okay, and start saying, I'm already okay, and when it comes, it'll find me thriving. The Stoics didn't believe in passivity. They believed in acting with wisdom. You still move. You still build. You still love deeply. But not at the cost of your sanity. Not by bargaining your soul for something outside your control. Desire is fire, and fire warms when it's tended. But when it's left untamed, it burns you down. So keep the flame. Just don't let it scorch your center. If you want love, live as love now. If you want success, show up in integrity today. If you want peace, stop chasing it from chaos. Because the truth is, when you move with clarity instead of clinging, life responds differently. Doors open, people listen, opportunities land not because you demanded them, but because you were ready. So ask yourself tonight, where have I turned my desire into a demand? What would shift if I returned to calm? How might life feel if I allowed instead of insisted? You don't have to erase your longing, just clean it, detangle it from fear, Let it glow from the inside out, not radiate from a place of need. Because when you become the version of you who doesn't need the outcome, but simply honors the desire, everything begins to move. You stop chasing, you start attracting, you stop waiting, you start becoming. And the life you've been craving begins to notice. You've been taught that strength looks like control, like gripping tight, managing every detail, bending life to your will. But tonight, you learn a different kind of power, the quiet, grounded strength of surrender. Surrender is one of the most misunderstood forces in life. It sounds like weakness, like giving up. But real surrender? It's not about defeat. It's about release. It's not the end of effort. It's the beginning of trust. You've lived the other way before. You've planned meticulously, hustled, endlessly, tried to manage timing, people, outcomes, and sometimes it worked. But what did it cost you? Your sleep, your peace, yourself? The Stoics didn't use the word surrender, but their entire philosophy points to it. They taught acceptance, not apathy, engagement, not control. Epictetus wrote, "Some things are within our control and others are not." That simple line, it's the foundation of freedom, because it gives you permission to stop fighting battles that aren't yours to win. Historians still explore whether Stoicism was more a personal ethic or a societal tool, but its deepest gift was this: a guide to inner liberation, a way to live free, even in a world you can't fully direct. And that's what surrender offers. It's not about quitting. It's about choosing your battles. It's knowing when to act and when to let go. It's the wisdom to recognize when your effort turns into force and to release the grip. So ask yourself, where in your life are you trying to control what's never been yours to hold? Maybe it's a relationship. You've tried to keep them close, tried to say all the right things, but deep down, you know, what's real doesn't need to be chased. It just stays. Maybe it's a dream. One that you've outgrown, but can't release because it's tied to who you thought you were supposed to be. Maybe it's timing. The feeling that life is late, that you've missed your chance, that everything should have happened already. But here's what surrender teaches. The timeline is not yours to write. Your job isn't to micromanage destiny. It's to be ready when it arrives. When you surrender, you don't stop caring. You care differently. You care in a way that honors your energy. You say, "I'll do my part, but I won't lose myself to make this happen." It's standing in a storm and knowing, I can't control the wind, but I can adjust my sail. There's deep courage in that. You begin to realize that your real power isn't in forcing things. It's in choosing how you meet them. You meet change with breath. You meet uncertainty with presence. You meet delays with curiosity. You meet heartbreak not with desperation but with grace. That's not weakness, that's mastery. And it's magnetic, because when you stop pushing, your energy softens. Your presence expands. You become a space things want to enter, not something chasing them down. It's like walking into a room and feeling calm without saying a word. People trust that energy. Life responds to it. Opportunities find their way to it. So how do you practice surrender? You start by noticing where your body is tight, your jaw, your shoulders, your breath. These are the places where resistance hides. You breathe into them. You ask, what am I trying to control here? And what would it feel like to trust, just for this moment, that I don't have to? You still take action. You still show up. But you no longer require the world to behave a certain way for you to feel okay. You stop bargaining with life. You stop performing for worth. You stop panicking when things don't go as planned, and instead you open. You trust the delay. You welcome the detour. You honor the closed door as much as the open one. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs?" That's not fatalism, it's fierce surrender, the kind that knows if it's meant for me, it won't miss me, and if it misses me, it was never mine. So tonight, let yourself rest. You don't have to hold it all. You don't have to force what isn't flowing. You don't have to carry stories that keep you in fear. Just for now, release. Release the outcome. Release the tension. Release the lie that control is your only safety. Because when you surrender, you don't disappear. You reappear. You return to your breath, your truth, your center. You become still enough to be found by peace, by alignment, by everything that was looking for you all along. So ask yourself tonight, where am I gripping so tightly I've forgotten how to breathe? What might unfold if I stopped trying to manage it all and simply let it be? What truth might find me if I created enough space for it to enter? Surrender is not the end. It's the threshold. You don't lose power when you let go. You become it. You've walked far to get here. Not in miles, but in shifts, in mindset, in presence, in energy. You've peeled away the noise, the need to chase, the illusions of control. And now, in this final step of the journey, you arrive where you were always meant to be, home in yourself. Because what's meant for you doesn't require chasing. It requires becoming. That's the real secret. The life you've been running after, it finds its way to the version of you who stops running, who gets still, who clears the clutter, who chooses peace not as a reward, but as a way of living. You've been taught to search outside, to reach, grasp, hunt, hustle. But tonight you understand. The most powerful magnet in the world is a person aligned with who they truly are. When you're aligned, when your thoughts, words, and actions flow from the same source, you don't just attract what's meant for you. You recognize it. You no longer confuse attention with love. You no longer confuse urgency with truth. You no longer accept chaos as the cost of keeping something close. Instead, you breathe, you observe, you allow. The Stoics lived by this. They believed that nature had a rhythm, and that our peace came from syncing with it, not resisting it. Epictetus reminded us, don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. That's not apathy. That's supreme trust. That's the calm of a soul who knows, I will do my part, and the rest will meet me where I am. Historians still question how Stoicism coexisted with destiny. Were the Stoics surrendering to fate or shaping it through virtue? But maybe it's not a contradiction. Maybe the most powerful thing you can do is live in such alignment that your fate feels like a friend, not a fight. And alignment doesn't mean perfection. It means presence. It means returning to your truth every time you drift. It means asking, not what will get me there fastest, but what reflects who I really am. That's where the attracting begins. You become so full of your own peace, your own purpose, your own clarity, that the world can't help but notice. Not because you're trying, but because your energy is undeniable. You're not searching for a seat at someone else's table. You're building your own and letting the right people arrive. You're not chasing validation. You're embodying value. You're not following timelines. You're honoring timing. And in doing so, you become a space that what's meant for you can enter. No friction, no fear, no forcing. Just flow. So how do you live from this place? You start every day by anchoring. You ask, what feels true for me right now? What am I holding on to that isn't mine? Where can I trust more, grip less? You return to stillness, not just when things fall apart, but especially when things are calm. You let peace be your default, not your emergency plan. You honor your energy like a compass. When something feels off, you don't override it. You listen, you redirect, you set intentions, not to control outcomes, but to align with your becoming. And slowly, gently, beautifully, you become a person who no longer needs to chase, because you've remembered, what's yours knows how to find you. It knows the sound of your breath when you're no longer panicked. It knows the feel of your energy when you've stopped performing. It knows the truth of your soul when you've stopped pretending. So ask yourself one final time, who am I becoming when I stop chasing? What has been trying to find me, but I've been too busy to receive? What would it look like to trust that I am already on the path, already becoming the person my future needs? Because the truth is, you're unfolding, and everything meant for you, it's unfolding too. Somewhere, in a quiet space in the future, it's being drawn to the energy you're cultivating now. With every boundary you keep, every truth you honor, every moment you choose peace over panic. So let go of the timeline, release the grip, return to your center, because what's truly yours doesn't require a chase. It requires you. Let your shoulders drop now. Let the effort ease out of your breath. You've done enough for today, more than enough. The thoughts can settle. The striving can sleep. Tonight you don't have to hold the world together. You don't have to chase the answers. You don't have to fight the silence. Just let it wash over you, like warm water, like a soft hum beneath the noise of your day. Everything you're seeking is already making its way to you, not because you're running toward it, but because you've cleared space for it to arrive. You've stopped clenching, stopped forcing, stopped rushing, and now there's room. Breathe into that space, in through the nose. Soft, gentle, out through the mouth. Slower this time. Let it all go. No need to hurry. You've remembered something ancient tonight. Something that lives beneath the distractions, the comparison, the noise. That you were never meant to chase life. You were meant to become it. You are the magnet. You are the home. You are the soft landing place for everything that's real and right in yours. Let that knowing tuck you in now. Let it wrap around your chest like a weighted blanket. You are safe. You are unfolding. You are exactly where you need to be. And when the morning comes, you won't wake up with urgency. You'll wake up with presence, with grace, with quiet clarity. And you'll move not because you're behind, but because you're aligned. For now, let sleep hold you. Let the stillness carry you. You are not missing anything. What's meant for you is already on its way, and it knows how to find you. Sweet dreams.